G'day guys, Dan here. Just thought I'd touch base with you guys and sort of keep you up to date with some of the work I'm doing on my garage. I used some floorboards that I pulled up out of the house when I was doing some renos a couple of years ago on the floors, and I've always wondered what to do with them, and I thought, well, that's perfect material to build a couple of doors out of for my new garage. So I'm just showing you some photos here of how the boards look. They're pretty rough on the edges, so I'm going to repurpose these, clean them up, trim them down, sand them back, and then make some doors out of them for the garage. So the first step is just to get rid of those splits and potentially some of the nail holes where I can. So it's just a matter of trimming them down the table saw, so that we've got nice smooth edges on both sides of the boards, and that's a good starting point for putting them together for a door. Don't want any of the splits or anything like that.
5 inches, 4 inches wider.
Alright. 5 inches, 4 inches wider. Table saw is a really good tool for that purpose, and I've often used it to clean up old wood and make it into a more usable form. So you can see here, this is how it looks when it's been trimmed on the sides, and it's had to run through both sides, and these following pictures will show you what it looks like with both sides. So there's a bit of work there. They're all a bit different thickness due to the fact that they had varying amounts of damage that need to be removed. So the boards aren't equivalent sizes, but they're close, and it's good enough to make a door with. Adds a little bit to the patina. So following this, also chamfered the corners of the board. I haven't shown that, but with a plane, I'd chamfered the corners. So guys, these are just the doors made up. Hi guys, these are just the doors made up from the pine that we were looking at the other day. So all 4 doors are made up. The one sitting on top, the one's from the recycled timber. The doors are all been put together. There's still some clean up to do in terms of getting rid of nail holes, cleaning up some marks where nail holes were, also pulling out the nails, preparing some filler, and also just getting rid of that dirty surface. That's what I'm just doing at the moment. You just see here there's some relic saw marks from where this was originally milled, and while it's a bit rough and it's painted, so just a matter of smoothing them out. Some of the imperfections that you can see, I've also put some filler in. When I'm smoothing out saw marks like that, I'll use a fairly coarse grit. I think this is a 60 grit. You can really see them grains there of the actual sandpaper, and obviously sandpaper is a bit of an art of its own. You got one here, is 120 grit, this finer one. This is something you'd use more when you're finishing, so it's important to start coarse and then get finer and finer. So you get an even surface, but then you're sort of smoothing off that surface so there isn't rough fluffy pieces hanging on there. I'll talk about sandpapers a little bit later. The sandpapers are a pretty important thing to understand as well. It's just a matter of getting the wood, in this stage, is getting the wood prepared for painting and getting it to the point where you can get some paint on. It's not going to be showing through them imperfections into the top coat, particularly with the gloss. So I've got some other paper here. So this is the one I like to use, the Diablo 120 grit, and it's the paper that you use when you're one for me. I'd use that one step before painting. So this is the final level of wood preparation before you put the paint on. Particularly when you're using gloss paint, it's important to try and prevent too many defects, because it really does emphasise defects, particularly a black colour, which these are going to be. So black gloss paint, any defects here is going to be really obvious, dents or grooves or anything like that. 180 is one step up from that. You can use that as well. Obviously, you can go all the way to P400 if you want. Yeah, so this is just how the doors are looking. I've given them a bit of a sand now. Those saw marks are somewhat smoothed out. That's probably good enough. I might come back to that a little bit. Also, just sanded back some of that filler that I put in as well. And you can see some filling of some old nail holes. Plenty of them in the wood. I couldn't trim all of them off when I was preparing it, otherwise I wouldn't have had much wood left. So it was a matter of just making the best of it. Coming back to sanding grits, these are disc sanding papers. This sanders are really useful, particularly for like shaping wood. It has a P36, that one, that's quite coarse. 36 is not the coarsest, that's 24. P24 is probably the coarsest I have. And that's oh here we go, sorry, 16. So 16 is a very aggressive disc. You can see how coarse that is, and what you want to use that for is for really ripping down wood that needs a lot of material removed from it down to close to a final shape. So I put some filler in a gap here. There's a bit of a warp in one of them boards and it looked a bit odd. So I put some filler in a gap to make the board look where the chamfer is, to make it look straight. We've also filled up these nail holes. Looking okay now. I've just got to make sure that there hasn't been any shrinkage as that Plastibond's dried out. So I'm using Plastibond Jelly product. Probably the best filler I've used. You can get Builder's Bulb and other types of filler, but I think when it comes to fillers, Plastibond's my favourite. I'm just using an orbital sander here. Orbital sanders are just a finishing sander. They're not really for cutting away wood so much. They're more for the sort of thing you do just before you're going to paint. So we're looking at the other door here, and you can still see some of the prominent claw marks on the sides. So I'm just going to go over them as well. Do both the coarse and the fine paper. I'm pretty much at a stage where I'm happy for it to be ready for painting. This is the finished product. So, well, the finished product is primer, grey primer with red hinges. The red hinges is actually a primer for the metal. Looks quite good in itself, but I also went over later on with a black paint as well. So generally, these was a success. It was a big project, took a lot of time, but I think it was worth it in the end to have these bespoke doors. And you can see here the black gloss. I've gone with black because it's a traditional colour. Black gloss gives you a really nice finish, and this has been out for a few weeks now, so I've actually got a layer of dust over this. It was a lot glossier when I first made them. Pad bolts on. You can see I've still kept the grey undercoat on the inside. I thought it was better to have a brighter colour inside, so it wouldn't make the room too dark. And I've got some pad bolt going up into the top, and the pad bolt going down also into the ground there, drop bolt. There's the back of the front doors. The front doors were made with a full X bracing as opposed to just one diagonal bracing. Also painted black. I think it's come up pretty well. Looks pretty smart. Certainly doesn't make the garage overly prominent to look at from a distance, but it still looks smart and glossy. So there's black paint on the hinges there. Still not sure about the black, to be honest, but I'm sort of warming to it. This is the overlap board in the middle, so what that does is serves to cover the gap you get between the doors. It sort of gives you a bit of privacy and also just makes it look neater. So that sits proud of the other boards, and it just fills that, overlaps the gap where the doors don't touch, obviously. Yeah, thanks for watching.